Okay, well, thank you, Yesha, for the lovely introduction. First off, when I'm presenting or when I'm getting really excited about things, I tend to get like a little bit quiet and speak really quickly. So I'm going to try not to do that today. I'm going to try to keep it pretty even. But if I start getting really animated and like you can't keep up because I'm talking too quickly or you can't hear me, just give me a little wave and remind me to speak up. So yeah, gonna set a little timer and let's get into it. So throughout the course of the day, you're going to be hearing a lot about different goddesses, symbols, associations, and things connected with the lion energy. And some of this is going to get really specific to different goddesses, Kybele, Rhea. What I want to start off doing, though, rather than getting into those specifics, I want to look at some of the iconography of these goddess symbols and the throne symbols that we find around the world so that we can find a way to connect with the meanings of this on a personal level, regardless of whether we're looking at traditions of India or Egypt or Greece or wherever. Because I think that it's really important for us as devotees, as worshipers, or as spiritual people to be able to understand the iconography of what we're seeing, to be able to read into the image and make a personal connection. So that's really what we're going to be drawing on. I'm going to be making a lot of connections between cultures. I'm not trying to say that every culture has the same meaning associated. Obviously, what the lion means in Greece is not going to be the same thing as what the lion means in Sumeria. It's not going to be the same thing across the world. But what we can do as modern practitioners is find a way to make this image and this meaning relevant to us at a personal level. So this is going to help if we're talking about Sekhmet, for example, and you're like, well, I don't really work with Sekhmet, but you can still find something in the image that's meaningful to connect to. So around the world, you see different images of goddesses either seated astride or enthroned among lions or other big cats, depending on the region. It may be leopards, jaguars, tigers. The energy is pretty much all the same. The meaning is really the same for what we're looking at. You'll see examples of this with Rhea, Kybele, the seated goddess of Shadowhuyuk, Durga in the Hindu tradition, and even in Stratonikeya, there is a coin minted with Hecate seated astride a lion carrying her torch. And it's these last two that I want to start off looking at for the purpose of examining the symbol of the lion in iconography. In the Chaldean oracles, we find a line where Hecate comes to the theurgist, comes to the practitioner, and she herself says, "If you call on me often, you will begin to perceive all things as a lion." I do want to put a little side note here. This line actually comes to us from Celis, who probably was either misreading or misquoting the line. In Greek, it would be panta leonta, all things as a lion. It's actually more likely that the line is pantach luonta, you will perceive all things going dark. And that makes a little bit more sense in the text. But nevertheless, we have this line where the goddess is saying, "If you call on me many times, you will perceive all things as a lion." So what does that mean? What can we take from that? Why would the goddess tell us that this is why would this be important enough for the goddess to come down to us and say this directly? It's because, in my interpretation, when we as theurgists, as priestesses, as devotees, witches, spiritual practitioners, however we identify ourselves, when we come properly prepared and with genuine devotion to the feet of the gods, to the goddess, be it Hecate, Kybele, be it whomever, we are taking on the characteristics that we become as the lion. So we become the lion that, as we see on the coin, Hecate sits astride, bringing her will into the world. So if we want to look at that and build on it, because the Chaldean oracles don't give us much in the way of meaning and exegesis, we can look at another tradition coming from India, where we have a prayer called the Lalita Sahasranama. And this is an ancient Sanskrit prayer praising the goddess Lalitambika, who is often conflated with Durga. who we see seated astride a lion. So the third name is Srimad Simhasaneshwari, the venerable mother goddess seated on the lion throne, or the venerable goddess, the mother of the lion throne, the Simhasana, also called the Navaratna Simhasana, the nine-jeweled lion throne, and we could go for hours talking about the 9 jewels and what all that means. But for the purpose of this talk, we're focusing on the lions. Iconographically, the goddess is depicted, Lalitambika, she's seated on this ornate, beautiful throne of heaven, which is seated atop 4 lion pillars. It's either resting on their heads or their backs, depending on the region, the artistic style, and all that. She's seated, you probably won't be able to see my legs. She kind of has one leg up, resting delicately on the throne, and the other leg is reaching down with her foot lightly touching the earth. So when we see this image, what we can take from this is that these lions upholding the throne of heaven, touching the earth, give a space, a liminal zone, where divinity and humanity, or the spiritual and the mundane, where these two things can come into contact. They create an energy that facilitates the goddess's ability to work in our lives, to come down into the world. When we get into the philosophy of, is the world of the divine separate from the world of humanity, it gets a little muddled, but that's iconographically what it's meant to be depicting. So how is it that the lion creates this? It's twofold, and something that we're going to talk about a little bit later is that this meeting point is facilitated through the lion's capabilities of destruction and liminality. And we'll see destruction, I mean, that's fairly easy. You see the lion associated with kings and war and authority. The liminal ability of the lion is a little bit more subtle, and so we're going to look at that a little bit more in detail later on. So when we're looking at the lion throne, we can also see the goddess Durga, who is called Simhavahini, she who rides the lion, the Simha Vahan. The lion is her vehicle. When the goddess is going into battle, when she's fighting the demons of pride, ego, ignorance, greed, whatever the evils of the world are, she mounts the lion to come into battle. The lion itself facilitates the ability of the goddess to enact her will in the world. So similarly, when we become the lion vehicle, we give a space for the goddess to enact her will in the world. Because that's really what it comes down to, that we as priestesses, we as spiritual practitioners, are the hands of the goddess in the world. We are her vessel to enact her will, to create change, to affect dramatic results. The lion destroying the ego is what reminds us that we are not separate to the divine, that we can't not be the vehicle because everything in existence is made of the goddess. So when we take our loving devotion to the goddess, we open our hearts and we say, reside within me, live in me, ride in my heart, ride in my spirit, let me be your vehicle into the world. We also say this in Hinduism with Hanuman. Y'all can't see, there's a little altar over here with Hanuman, who rips his heart open to reveal Lord Rama inside. So it's a way of us expressing our own divine nature in the world. And as I said, you'll see this the world over. It's not just Hinduism, it's not just in Greece. Whether you find it in Rhea or Kybele, going into battle against the Titans or the giants, or Ishtar riding the lion into battle, whether you see Isis seated on the lion throne nursing the infant Horus, again, enacting her generative ability, her capacity to create life into the world, we're all going to start seeing the same meaning the same thread, regardless of the culture, regardless of the specifics. So when we take all this into consideration, when we're calling on this leonine energy, when we're calling on the goddess, the power that allows us to transform ourselves to become as a lion, what we're actually doing is we are creating that liminal space to destroy the ego, the miasma, the boundary that we create in our minds between us and the goddess. One second, I just want to make sure I'm like doing okay on time. So in destroying this boundary, what we're creating in ourselves is we, through the destruction of ego, are making ourselves into the pillars that support her throne. We are the pillar upholding the virtue of the goddess. You can think of that in the same way that you would say she's a pillar of her community, or just like a pillar of support. And we are taking these powers, these virtues, these abilities into ourselves to be able to uphold that in every way. As we do in morning practice with Yesha, we're working for the benefit of all beings. We're trying to bring this into the world so that we can create something that is more in line and more in harmony with the inherent divinity of the world. Again, nothing is actually separate from the goddess. Nothing could ever be aside from divinity. But it's our perception that needs a little bit of a shift and a readjustment. So if we go back to the Lalita Sahasranama, we'll see the first three names are Sri Mata. The Sri is an honorific that we give to the goddess or any honored person, any divinity. So Sri Mata means the venerable mother. Sri Maharagni, the great queen, the Maha, great queen, Ragni. And then Sri Matsimhasaneshwari, again, the venerable mother goddess seated on the lion throne. And these three names sort of summarize the generative, operative, and destructive capacities of the goddess. Sri Mata, the one who gives birth to the world, who gives birth to all of creation. Sri Maharagni, the queen who oversees the preservation and sustaining of the cosmos that has been created. And Sri Matsimhasaneshwari, who is the lion of destruction. So why are we invoking this power of destruction? What benefit is that to us? What we're actually talking about here is the destruction, again, of the ego. It's the destruction of our perception of difference and duality, the destruction of the miasma of the mind that leads us to believe that we are other than God. When we break that down and we look at how this can come into our lives, how we can affect change, how we can embrace this energy, we can start to think about all of the ways that we as priestesses, we as practitioners, how we can bring a beneficial, wrathful compassion in our destruction. We start by working within ourselves. We start by destroying our own negative tendencies, our own habits and mental constructions. And then we can turn that out into the world where we're breaking down like patriarchal systems, where we're breaking down racial biases and systemic problems, where we're working to create something that's a little bit more divinity oriented, not in that we need to create a theocracy, but that we're bringing our world into alignment with something that's a little bit more beneficial. And through this destructive action, we actually get into the liminal aspect of the lion. So when we're calling on this energy, when we're allowing this ripping, tearing force that we see in Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism as the pet and the threat that we see in morning practice. I just assume that everybody here is like attending morning practice.
Some do. Yeah.
So when we get into this like ripping, tearing energy, what that does is it creates a space in our spiritual fabric, in the world, in space-time, in whatever, that opens up something that is not this and not that. At first, we have to become not human and not divine. We're in the in-between state where our ego has been demolished as much as we can while we're still embodied, but we haven't attained the actualization of divinity, what we would call moksha, liberation, nirvana. This henosis, where we become a part of the cosmic consciousness of divinity. So in the in-between state, that's where we're able to affect the powerful magic and the change that allows us to embrace these leonine energies. Reinforcing that, you'll see like Kibele, for example, who rides in on lions. She's a bit of an in-between, a liminal goddess. She came to the Greeks as a foreigner. They were not all about that, and the Romans as well. She celebrated with these frenzied rites of orgiastic ecstasy and the clashing of cymbals and castration, and the Greeks are like, that's not what we do. But her power is to create that rending, that breaking, to form something anew. And we see the same with Dionysus. Dionysus is attended by lions, by leopards. He comes in as a foreign god to completely revolutionize the system and to bring a liberating power, especially to women. We see the Maenads, an oppressed sort of group the world over, but particularly in Greece. We also find, again, in Hinduism, we'll see Narasimha, who is not a goddess, but we're going to give him honorable mention here. Narasimha is the man-lion incarnation of Vishnu. When there was the demon Hiranyakashipu running amok in the world and just generally creating problems, because this is how we do things in Hindu mythology, you have to have a demon instigator. This demon had a boon from Lord Brahma that he couldn't be killed by a man or a human or a beast, human or an animal. He couldn't be killed by any weapons. He couldn't be killed inside or outside. He couldn't be killed by your hands. He couldn't be killed in day or night. So the gods have no idea what they're going to do about this. They pray to Lord Vishnu, who incarnates as Narasimha, the man lion. He comes in the form of a human body with a lion's head. He takes the demon Hiranyakashipu, sets him on his lap so that he's not in earth and he's not in the heavens. He rips him apart with his claws. Again, we get into this destructive aspect. He rips him apart with his claws so that it's not by his hands and it's not by a weapon. He's in the threshold so that he's not inside or outside. It's dusk, so it's not day or night. We're bringing together all of these elements into one single moment in time. And when we're working with the lion energy, that's really what we're bringing in. We're bringing in the ability to protect and defend, to destroy, to create anew, to uphold, to sustain, all of these things that in the world we might perceive as being different. But in this liminal space, we're able to actually bring a unity to create something that's beneficial. In the Devi Mahatmya, another text from Hinduism, Lord Narasimha's Shakti, his power in the world, his divine goddess aspect, is Narasimhi, like same thing, the man lion, but it's the feminine form. And they say in one of the hymns that when she arrives on the battlefield, she tosses her mane, dispersing constellations, that her roar sends demons in flight and causes the world to go dark. Where else have we heard this? In the probably more proper translation of Pantahluonta, that if you say these things to me repeatedly, I will appear and the world will go dark around you. So again, we find that the touching of divinity, the touching of this sacred space, both within and without ourselves, disperses the constellations, the essence of what orders our world, the power that keeps the wheel turning, that we just disperse all that through embracing the energy of Narasimhi, of Kibeli, of the lion.
If you wanted to finish your statement, it was just, so are you in some ways talking about this space between the mundane world and divinity? Like if you say my name enough, the world goes dark. And to me, it almost seems like they're explaining, like, before you reach divinity, the world grows dark, like it's the space.
Absolutely. That's an excellent way to start interpreting that, is that, you know, we could look at it very physically and literally as death. You know, the world has to go dark for you to attain the divinity. But I think it's also a darkening of the perceptive ability that creates an idea of duality.
Yeah.
What we hear referred to as the shimmering, rippling landscape of appearances, this envisioned reality that arises but isn't true. Because if we look at the original state of everything, it's darkness, right? The sun, the light, this sort of imagining of light is incidental, really. And if all that goes out, we're going to go back to being dark.
In Kabbalah, I think it's called Daf, where it's just, I mean, it's almost like purgatory. Sometimes I wonder if that's what we're in. If we're like all really within this space, we just have to realize that we are divine.
I think that's the basis of most of the spiritual traditions that I've studied, is that, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're trying to clear that away. And so that's exactly what we're getting through this, through the conference, through our interaction with these goddesses, through this lion energy, is that this is bringing to us the ability to rend that and to clear that away, to tear off the veil that's the veil of Maya, of illusion, that keeps us locked in the idea that there is anything to be not divine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. That was a great question. Did you have anything else?
No.
I mean, to just like,
yeah, kind of a exclamation point.
Yeah. So, okay, let me start wrapping this up. So we find all of these references to dispersing, even in Lukumi. What we have are Santeria, as it's more commonly known. Part of our initiatory rites, without going into too much explicit detail, when the initiate sits on the throne, we're seated on a throne, reminiscent of the crowning of kings in Oyo in Nigeria. Part of the rite and part of the songs, we're singing to the spirits, the Orisha, and to the Yawo, the initiate, saying, you are a leopard, you come as a leopard, or the spirit is a leopard, the leopard comes to eat. So again, not a lion, but we're borrowing here. This identification of the deity of the initiate with the lion, with the leopard, is all about devouring the old self, devouring who we were, creating a space where you can be reborn, and reborn in a position of power. So whenever we're feeling like, I don't know if my work in the world is like up to snuff, I don't know if I'm doing it right, I don't know if this is right or if this is having any effect, again, embracing this lion energy reminds you that no, once you've touched divinity, once you've perceived your own interaction with divinity, you become royalty, you become divine, you become a priestess, you have been transformed simply through showing up. Again, Hecate says, if you say these things to me many times, she doesn't say if you perform elaborate rituals, if you bathe yourself in the blood of the blood of a lamb and wash in 7 sacred rivers and do all this, although that is also sort of part of it. But she says that if you show up, if you call on me, then this will happen. All of you, by virtue of being here, by attending this conference, have already embraced this energy, have already come into a place where you have been purified. You're already beginning the breakdown of that miasmic veil. And so sometimes we just need a little confidence, but sometimes we need a little reminder. So if you're feeling this, some of the things that you might try, you might, go in the direction here of setting up an altar. I'm assuming most of us have worked with some sort of spiritual energy, whether it's deities or spirits or animals, totems, things like that. You can embrace any of those practices centered around the lion, but it's really important that you make it your own, right? Because that's what we're learning here, is that this theme pops up across the world. It pops up across cultures, and every culture has made it their own. And so whatever is working for you, make sure to do that, whether it's setting up an altar, whether it's doing a meditation, whether it's just giving to a wildlife foundation to help actual animals, because I'm very big on that, like help the actual animals. One of the things that I find helpful is just sort of going back to the very basic self-blessing. This is a really important way to acknowledge our intrinsic divinity and to remind ourselves how to bring that into the world. I tend to frame all of my work as like, goddess, do this through me, instead of I'm going to do it. That's because I'm from the South and I grew up around a bunch of Baptists. Lord, work your will through me. That's how we be. So you might start off with something like fierce, feline, feminine, free, Kabeli, oh mother, great divinity of the mountains, I pray to you, come be with me here, be in this space with me, hear my words, and allow me to create change in this world. Mother, I ask for your blessing. Let me be your lion. Open a space with me that I may pull the chariot of your will, that my heart may be the seat, the throne within which you reside. I ask for your blessing on my head that, as I shake my mane, may all that which is unworthy be dispersed. May all that which needs to be repaired or scattered, may the shaking of my mane affect this change in the world. Bless my tongue that as I speak with the voice of the lion, my roar disperses the negative tendencies, the demons, the accumulations of ego, pride, jealousy, etc. Bless my hands that my claws may open space in the world, that your light, that your love, that your power may flow through. I won't go through a whole thing. But anything like this, where you're identifying yourself as the lion, where you're placing this power into various parts of your body. We find this in, again, in Hinduism, we have what's called a kavacham, a prayer of protection. We're praying a shield around ourselves, where we might ask, Saraswati, by the seed syllable sa, which begins your name, reside on my tongue, that everything that I speak is done with sweetness and blessings. With the seed syllable ra, reside on my nails, that no harm may come to anything that my hands touch. So we're placing this divinity inside of ourselves to reaffirm and to awaken the realization of that divine potential within ourselves. And I think I am just about at time. So I want to leave a little bit of room for questions, thoughts, discussion, anything like that. No, and I also, if you'll forgive me, I don't know actually how to work Zoom. I'm very technologically unadvanced, so I don't know if there are questions in the chat, but I think Yesha's going to help me with that. Okay.
Yeah, if there's anyone who'd like to bring something up or ask in the chat. Angelia says, wonderful speaker, amazing topic. I recently started reading a book about unlocking the power of affirmations and the importance of facing change and our shadow aspects with courage and honesty. And Linda says, yay, Rowan, thank you. So if anyone has any other comments or anything you can from online, you can put them in the chat and Rowan will stay here for a minute and interact with you. And if anybody else here has any questions, maybe after Rowan connects online for just one more minute, you can come and ask him
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just gonna field questions left and right, but yes.
I really love the prayer that you said at the end. Is that something that you say for yourself?
Normally, okay, don't tell anybody, but I wing it. I don't have a lot of like formally written prayers. So, but yeah, some variation of that where it's just tailored to whatever part of myself I'm feeling is symbolically maybe lacking or needs a little bit of a boost. So in Lukumi, our crown is really important. So I always start with the crown of the head, paying homage to Shango, who is my crown, again, the leopard. Or, if I'm feeling like before I got up here and I was feeling like, oh, am I going to throw up? This presentation is making me so nervous. Like putting that in my heart as the center of the lion's courage, or your stomach, wherever you find that. So it doesn't have to be the same thing every time. It's just however you want to.
Very natural.
I was just gonna ask,
Yeah.
do you think you might go ahead and write us a prayer of that, an example of that kind of prayer that we could share afterwards in an email with everybody?
Sure.
That'd be so nice.
It was powerful.
It was very
Thank you.
powerful. Can we say a big thank you to Rowan for his wonderful presentation? Thank you, Rowan.